That's a song that's being offered to connect you with the real universes. If a person tests it for themselves for like 15 minutes before you go to sleep each night and 15 minutes when you wake up in the morning, see what life shows you. The new presentation is here for everybody to wake up, remember why we came here, and have a purpose, a real purpose in life. You can become involved with the wonderful worldwide educators projects, the Total Universal Rainforest and the Nations United Universal University and the All Solar Research Vessels, the homeschooling, the new presentation created by Dwayne Hepner, the new man, has wrote new books available at lulu.com of the Adventure Is series by Dwayne the Great Writer. If you get a hold of Kelsey Lynn Brown on Facebook or YouTube, you can get PDFs of them. Today I'll read some of New Book 5, The New Wave Is, by Dwayne the Great Writer. She was absolutely right on with what she related to me, as life is about seeing, and not about bodies and relationships, but the whole of life as the all is. In a manner of speaking, Paul built the little tricycle for people to get a ride on, to get their feet wet with the real universes, and I have built the vehicle to take them there. Because of all the experience the influence has, she is able to put together, just like a very finely tuned droid, a type of self-awareness of her position with all that she relates to. And because she has become so ultimately in tune with all that is taking place, she is able to relate the entire reality of it without any petty bias or misinterpretation. I can see how she now relates to me so differently from when I had stepped back from the rod of power in 2003. This is really cool. I have come a long ways. Yes, you have, Dwayne. So much so that I am actually experiencing a loving relation with you, as I have a huge storage of experiences along the lines of relationships. And I can discern the ones that have the most potential from all the ones that do not. And so now, this is how I relate to you. That is why you are here, as you can see, she said, as suddenly Rebazar and Paul appeared right in front of me and smiled. You needed to have this experience, so to better understand what the influence is, and also convey this to your readers. Because she plays a very important role in this place in life that most people cannot even fathom, and most will probably never understand. Yes, life is so much bigger now than when I brought Paul onto the scene, and the influence sees this, and she sees what you are doing. And at the same time, she plays all sides in the psych realms because it is her way of doing things. She is so much more than a double agent, but something that each U-tune must come to understand before they can get past the gods of man. Here again is where Durwood and Gerald come in as a great lesson givers during this last yuga in the dark realms. Life on the rock worlds in such a short time has become the great spiritual fallacy. Crony has masterminded the business of Paul's creation into an elite corporation and closed it off to the real universes, while Gerald sits as his own king at the bottom of the pile with his physical life and awareness. The influence can only interpret what others decide. as most who follow the gods of man are drenched in fear, a fear so great they dare not venture past what they know. How many of the corp members have the courage to come to Paul and I and ask to be shown what is real now? There are several, as the new students, Dwayne, who have taken the risk to step forward and see more. Paul and I have shown each one of them who really stands in the new wave is the power, the rod of power. Your new books will help to resolve all the old, outdated attitudes of those still stagnant with the silly worshiping God follower idea, said Rebazar. Wow, this is way cool, I thought. So I have been on the right track as I decided to go over more of what took place in 2003. I can see that there are so many more details that can be known and shared, because life on Earth and anywhere in the psychic realms is really knowing about the reality of the new wave now. It is not about me, as I am simply Dwayne, but about the whole of life and what it decides to share now. And so it is. As Durwood and Gerald took on their positions, they went overboard with what they were doing. And as life in the psychic realms is all about cause and effect, they were too adamant about doing things their way instead of with the is. Yes, it's so. It is time for a real education, a real cure for all. And so the opportunity can only be now. This adventure we are all on is far too real for most, so they will need more time to realize where they are at. And so they have the right to stay with their gods for as long as they want, said Rebazar. I continued to consider how fortunate I am to have taken a risk like no one else. Of all those who were given the opportunity to do something to offset the silliness of Gerald and Crony, I was the only one who stood up with the real guides and volunteered. The whole of life is about being and seeing, and not about becoming one of the many who cater to their convincing notions of what they have assumed has taken place. Here is where I keep pointing to Rebazar and Paul in my new books, as they have the real position with what is real now. I'm not claiming anything, but simply living my own adventure with the real guidance I have accepted. This real guidance is for everyone and is available now. As I looked over the entire scene I was in, Ursula suddenly appeared as Rebazar and Paul then disappeared. How are you doing here? She asked with a slight giggle. Was it you that shoved me here? I asked as I laughed too. Who, me? Why would you consider such a thing? She said. Actually, it has all been very refreshing and educating. I have learned a whole lot more, and the influence even likes me a lot better. Of course, I know she is being funny and trying to be nice at the same time from her configuration of experiences with all she knows. But it has been fun with her, I said. Ha ha, you are the funny boy. It was all meant to be for you to have this experience, as your readers needed to know more about what they have helped to create over the lifetimes they have been asleep. Let's get back to that strange area we were looking over before this happened, she said as we left. Part 6. As Ursula and I departed, I heard the influence say goodbye for now, as we both knew we would have many more encounters and experiences with all that is taking place in the psych realms. Ursha and I finally reached the conglomerated consciousness of malignance, which has been created over the years from the influence working through Gerald's strangely peculiar loving wife, Crony. Because Crony has created her own designed consciousness a particular way, it must be so that the effect of what she has caused must show up somewhere. It is all like a person having cancer for many years and not knowing it until something on the surface of the body shows up or there is some kind of internal reaction. When it comes to the creative part of a person's personal consciousness, I have learned to look beneath the surface because most people like to hide what they will not reveal. I always look to a person's health first, then patiently wait to see what they will or will not reveal, and especially by their actions. As I have mentioned many times before, from the real side, a person's intent always shows up. As I deal with many people on the earth, they seem to think they can get away with their maneuvering plans to try and bring everything from what we are doing into their arena and have the control they want. Here again is where most people use their literal sense, thinking they can outdo the whole of life, to where they are not noticed for what they are really doing. But it is actually from their intentional dark-sided unawareness they are deciding their motives and ideas and not a conscious participation in the sound-like reality with their real awareness. It has been a lot of years since the boys tried in every which way to tell Gerald what was taking place with Crony. It all seems like such an old story, but like any plague or gross disease, it has all become so much bigger from the unseen fermentation on this level. The story of these two is far from over, as cause and effect will have the final scenario from all they have created. The corporation is like standing in the halls of the dark Vatican, as there is a brooding darkness that lingers everywhere, which is mainly undetected by those who have been conditioned for their placement among the asleep. We will enter this strange manifestation of Crony and Gerald's business venture now, she said, as she led the way. I like watching Ursha on these adventures, because she is so beautifully elegant with everything she does. Her form and gracefulness is like a symphony of motion and directness. She amazes me as her intent is always so real and pure. While I am writing this, she is smiling so sweetly at me because she knows every impression I am producing. I have made the Adventure Is series very defined and vastly in-depth, more so than Paul ever did with his writings, because it all breaks down to the sign of the times and how complex everything has become. I grew up in the Leave It to Beaver days, and this is how I live my life. But for me to have placed myself where I now am, I have had to go through huge amounts of real experience. For me to get through myself and into the real universe. Just like all those silly tests all of us took in school, and then for those who went to college and even into trade school, there are a lot of tests that have to be completed as a person eventually qualifies themselves for the degree they have earned. And even from there, as soon as we step down from the podium where we were handed that little piece of paper, we must now face a totally new arena of experience and see if we can survive going through it. So, for anyone to even begin to understand what it takes to first get through themselves and into reality, they must have huge amounts of real knowledge and real experience. My position is to report what is taking from all the levels of life, and not just a one-dimensional satire going over the events on the earth only. Each one of us must learn to qualify ourselves for the whole of life, and it takes real guidance and especially a real education to do this, as it is a big task. Ursha and I entered the grotesque alien structure and floated over to a huge centrally constructed area where one gigantic infested building towered over all the others. There were large insects flying around the outside. They were as big as pigs. Crony's little bug-brained servants, Dwayne. They are part of the lower end of the membership. Those she finds useful as insects, while most of the membership has been turned into some form of animal, as you have seen the many times you entered her house, said Ursha as we flew around scanning the area. I was in awe at the structures Crony and Gerald had decided on this level. They were the most eerie things, like in the movie Alien, so as to hold their followers in a claptrap of fear and obligation to that fear. It's so easy to see what Gerald and Crony have decided from this subconscious level, and now to see what it has grown into. This is a very hidden place to most, and so the majority of the dumbed-down members cannot find this area. Even if they did, they would not recognize what is taking place here or even who these creatures are. It's like the witch who brought Snow White the apple, who disguised herself to poison her. Everyone chooses their position, and by doing so, the effect soon comes to pass as to what is actually taking place. As long as the membership is glazed over with Gerald's performance as the headmaster, then all his onlookers will not see past him and into his real intent, she said.